The question of how many people we should be letting into the United States as immigrants is a hot topic of debate, and it has been for a very long time. But I don't really think it should even be controversial. In this video, I have a bunch of reasons split into 4 sections as to why we should let all of the immigrants in.
Section 1. Crime.
Contrary to what a lot of people think, immigrants actually commit less crime than natural-born American citizens. From this study from the National Institute of Justice, just from a couple months ago, we see that not only do natural-born citizens commit the most crime, but also that illegal immigrants commit the least crime. So we have natural-born citizens with the most crime, legal immigrants in the middle, and then illegal immigrants at the bottom. Now, this might seem tough for some people to believe, but I have a skit, so...
I really want this lady's purse and all, so I can buy an iPhone, but if I get arrested for this, and they, throw me in prison, they're probably gonna realize I came here illegally, and I'm probably... They'll send me back to they'll send me back to South Sudan, Jesus Christ, Fuck, there is a reason why I got out of there.
I'll just get a fucking job.
I really want this lady's purse so I can buy myself 29 iPhones with her credit card. If I get caught, they'll probably put me in prison, though. Yeah, you don't have to pay rent in prison, so that's pretty cool. Fuck it.
Give me your purse, lady. Yeah, give me your purse and all the money in the purse in the back. So yeah, immigrants are actually the least criminally inclined part of the population. Of course, in the case of illegal immigrants, this is ignoring the fact that they came into the country illegally, but the next points that I'll make, I think, will make it clear that even illegal immigration is most likely beneficial to you and the entire country.
Section 2. Economics.
Immigration helps grow the economy in a pretty simple way. More workers. The 4 factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, with land being the resources that we can extract and use for our economy. This one isn't really changed by immigration, so let's move on to labor, with labor being the workforce that we have. And this is obviously increased by immigration, since the more people we have in the country, the more workers there will be. Capital is the tools and technology that we have that can be used to make labor get resources more efficiently. That one is not really increased by immigration, so we'll move on. Entrepreneurship is when people start businesses that combine the first 3 factors of production to generate profit. This is also increased by immigration, as if you have more people, you will have more entrepreneurs. So increasing immigration does significantly grow the economy, but the absolute size of an economy isn't especially important to just an average person living there. For example, the GDP per capita of Finland is way lower than the United States, but people there are happier than they are here. Something that is much more important on an individual level, and probably to you, is Social Security. If you're ever planning to retire or live past 65, Social Security is a very important safety net for you to have in your older years. However, according to bipartisanpolicy.org, by 2033, Social Security may be required to decrease the amount that they pay out by 21%. That is a huge decrease, and for the average person on Social Security, it would be really bad if that happened. Why is Social Security being forced to do this? Well, it's because we have so many old people these days. 30 years ago, there weren't as many old people because people just didn't live as long. 100 years ago, there were fucking no old people. But as medical technology gets better, we are seeing more and more people becoming 65 or even living into their 80s and 90s and 100s. That places a much heavier burden on Social Security. Now, this wouldn't necessarily be that bad because obviously as time goes on, the economy generally gets more productive. But what makes the situation much worse is that we are not having as many children as we did before. Fertility rate is the average amount of children that a woman will have in her lifetime. If we look at a graph of fertility rates in the United States since 1900, you see that there is a massive decline, and it's actually gone below 2. Now, there's something called the replacement rate, which is how high this number needs to be for a country to sustain its population without any immigration going on. We are below that, and we've been below it for a while. You might say, well, people just need to have more kids, but many governments have tried to implement policies to get people having more kids, and it has never worked. Let's look at China. At one point, they had the one-child policy because they were scared that they were going to have too many people. But as time went on, it was clear that they were actually having way too little kids now. So they turned it into a 2-child policy, then a 3-child policy, and then they just gave up on it. And now they give tax breaks to people who have kids. But if you look at the graph, you'll see that the birth rate in China is still way too low. What this means for America is that without immigration, our population will start decreasing, which is terrible for the economy. Even worse, there will be so few working age people that the social security system might just collapse. But if we're able to bring in many millions of people, that will solve this problem because we will have an inflow of workers which will help balance this situation out. So it's a huge problem, but it's a pretty simple solution. Remember when I said the absolute size of an economy doesn't really matter to the average person? Well, that's not necessarily true. Since World War II, the world's reserve currency has been the US dollar. This is beneficial to us because it makes it cheaper for us to take on debt. And if you haven't noticed, we are taking on a lot of debt. Because of this, we have not accumulated as much debt as we otherwise would have. So that's pretty beneficial to us. In the next 80 years, bringing in 1 million more immigrants per year or not doing that could be the difference between keeping this status quo for ourselves and losing it forever.
Section 3. Demographics.
So we've gone over the fact that Americans aren't having as many kids as they need to be without bringing immigrants in. But how is the rest of the world doing in population growth? Well, let's look at this graph. I want to focus on 3 continents. North America, which is just Canada and the United States, Europe, and Africa. With the light blue bars being the current population, and the dark blue bars being the population in 2100. Let's look at Africa first. You can see that their population is going to increase insanely quickly over the coming century. This is too much population growth. While more people does still mean a bigger economy, Africa doesn't really have the economic capacity to educate this many children to turn them into extremely productive adults, which means that their economy won't benefit as much from this. And resource scarcity will be a big issue, meaning that a lot of people are going to suffer. If we look at Europe's population, we see that there's a significant decline. This is also very bad, and it will lead to a heavy toll on the European economy over the coming century. If we look at North America, we see that there's about a 20% growth over the coming century, which is pretty good. However, it's not necessarily high enough. According to Census.gov, by 2060, 23% of our population in the United States will be people who are 65 and older, compared to only 17% in 2022. This still places a much harsher burden on the already struggling social security system than there already is. Since it's basically impossible to implement good enough policies to get people to have more kids, we pretty much have to let in more immigrants to counterbalance this.
Section 4. Resources.
Now, you might be concerned that the United States doesn't have the resources to support 400 million or even 500 million people. And that is a reasonable thing to be concerned about. So let's look at a couple of facts. The United States exports 20% of its food? Okay, so apparently we could already feed 400 million people with the food that we're making. Wow, okay. What about housing? I mean, we're going through a housing crisis right now, right? So that has to be an issue too. Well, we actually only use 7% of our land for housing in the entire country, just 7%. That is kind of a lot, but I think it's pretty clear that we could be using this land much more efficiently. So I think that the 7% number is more of a suburbs problem. But this isn't a walkable cities video. This isn't a dense housing video. So actually, let's look at Japan. Alright, so Japan's population density is 874 people per square mile, while the United States population density is just 98 people per square mile. So, if the United States was populated as densely as Japan is, which has a higher life expectancy than us, so this is not necessarily like a hellscape, we would be living longer if we were Japan, I guess. Then the United States could fit 3 billion people? What the Okay, let's just divide that by 3. So it's just just a little bit over 1 billion people, because the United States is a big food exporter while Japan is a big food importer, and I think, it makes sense for us to be a little bit worried about food security. So let's just say we only have 1 billion people in the country. Damn. When you put it that way, it kind of seems like we have a lot of space that could be filled up with more people, huh?
Outro.
Okay, let's get real. I think it's important that in discussions like this, people are honest about the actual reasons why they're arguing for their position. While I think that I've already given you a lot of good reasons to support immigration, there is one big reason why I am personally so in favor of bringing as many people into the country as possible. And that's just because some guy living in the slums of Brazil is going to have a much better life if they're allowed to live in the United States. So it just makes people's lives better. So yeah, that's the video. Tell me what you thought about it, and like, comment, and subscribe. I actually put some work into this one, so please.